Have you ever caught yourself mid-sentence, talking to your parents, and realized your voice had changed? Not just your tone, your posture, your vocabulary. Even the jokes you make disappear, replaced by a version of you that feels smaller, quieter, more careful. And then 10 minutes later, you're texting a friend, and suddenly you're loud again. Confident, a little reckless with your words. Same brain, same memories, same face in the mirror. So which one is actually you? Most people never stop to ask that question, because switching between versions of ourselves feels so automatic that it doesn't even register as strange. But it is strange. Think about it. You don't consciously decide to change your laugh when your boss walks into the room. You don't plan to speak slower around your grandmother or faster around your coworkers. It just happens. Like your mind already knows the room before you do. Here's what nobody talks about. This isn't fakery. It isn't lying. And it definitely isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. What you're experiencing has a name, and once you understand it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In your friends, your family, even in strangers on the street shifting their entire posture the second someone they know walks by. Psychologists call it code switching, though that term barely captures how deep it actually goes. It's not just switching words. It's switching identity in real time based on who's watching. Imagine you're at a family dinner. Your uncle brings up politics. You choose your words like you're walking across ice, because one wrong sentence could turn dinner into a war. Now imagine that same conversation happening with your closest friend at midnight, over pizza, when nothing is off limits, and you say exactly what you think without softening a single word. Same brain, same opinions, even, but two completely different people speaking them. That's only part of the story, though, because here's where it gets even stranger. Researchers in social psychology have long studied something called self-presentation theory, the idea that human beings don't have one single self. We have many, and each one gets activated depending on the audience in front of us. Sociologist Irving Goffman compared it to a stage. Life, he said, is a performance, and every social situation is a different scene, with different expectations, different scripts, different masks. But wait, if that's true, doesn't that mean we're all just actors? Doesn't that mean nothing about us is real? Here's the part that changes everything. The masks aren't hiding you. They're revealing you. Every version of yourself that appears around different people is drawing from the same core identity, just filtered through a different lens. Your quiet, careful self around your parents isn't fake. It's the part of you shaped by years of wanting approval, of learning which words earned a smile and which ones earned silence. Your loud, unfiltered self around close friends isn't fake either. It's the part of you that only feels safe enough to exist when the risk of judgment disappears. Now here's the strange part. Neuroscience actually backs this up. When you're around people you trust deeply, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system for threat and social danger, quiets down. Less vigilance, less filtering. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for self-monitoring and impression management, also relaxes its grip. That's why you feel more like yourself around old friends. Not because that version is more authentic, but because your brain has stopped working so hard to protect you. Compare that to being around someone whose opinion matters to you, someone with power over you, or someone new. Your brain treats social uncertainty almost like physical danger. Cortisol rises slightly. Your amygdala stays alert. Your prefrontal cortex kicks into overdrive, scanning every sentence before it leaves your mouth, adjusting your tone, softening your opinions, monitoring how you're being perceived. This isn't weakness. It's evolution. For most of human history, being rejected by your group wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Ancient humans who read a room wrong and said the wrong thing could be excluded from the tribe. And exclusion once meant losing protection, food, safety, even survival. So when you feel yourself shifting personalities around different people, you're not being fake. You're running an ancient survival program that once kept your ancestors alive. But here's where it becomes even more fascinating. Have you noticed how some people seem to have only one version of themselves, no matter who they're with? They seem so consistent, so unshaken, so unaffected by the room. It's easy to admire that and think, why can't I be like that? The truth is more complicated than admiration deserves. Some of that consistency comes from genuine self-assuredness, yes. But some of it also comes from something psychologists call low social monitoring, meaning these people are simply less attuned to how others perceive them. It's not always a strength. Sometimes it's an unawareness. Meanwhile, people who shift more dramatically between social versions of themselves often have something in common: high social sensitivity. They notice subtle cues, shifts in tone, body language, mood. They pick up on things most people miss entirely, which means that constantly changing yourself around different people, something that can feel exhausting or even shameful, might actually be a sign of emotional intelligence, not weakness. Let that sit for a second. Now here's a twist most people never consider. If different environments activate different versions of you, what happens when your different social worlds collide? Imagine your childhood friend meeting your work colleagues, or your quiet, respectful self accidentally slipping out in front of the friends who only know your loud, wild side. That uncomfortable, almost dizzying feeling, that's called identity dissonance. It's the psychological equivalent of two separate movies playing on the same screen at once. Uncomfortable, yes, but also revealing, because it shows you just how many versions of yourself are running quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right context to appear. Think about social media for a moment. Have you noticed how people often post one version of themselves online and behave completely differently in person? That's not necessarily dishonesty. It's identity curation, choosing which self to present based on an imagined audience. Some psychologists argue that heavy social media use has actually made this switching more exhausting than ever before, because now we manage not just a few in-person identities, but dozens of digital ones. A professional self on LinkedIn, a playful self on Instagram stories, an anonymous, more brutally honest self in private group chats, each with its own tone, its own rules, its own risks of rejection. No wonder so many young people report feeling emotionally drained by simply existing online. It's not laziness. It's identity management on a scale humans have never had to handle before. But here's where this story turns personal. Because if you're someone who feels like you become a completely different person depending on who's around, you might have quietly wondered, somewhere in the back of your mind, which one is the real me? Here's the answer that might finally bring you peace. There is no single, hidden, true self sitting underneath all these versions, waiting to be uncovered like buried treasure. Identity isn't a fixed object. It's a pattern. A living, adjusting system built from memory, environment, relationships, and emotional safety. You are not one fixed self performing different masks. You are a flexible intelligence, constantly recalibrating to protect yourself, connect with others, and survive socially complex situations. Psychologist Carl Rogers once described the healthiest form of identity not as consistency, but as congruence, meaning your different social versions align closely enough that none of them feel like a betrayal of who you are. The goal was never to be exactly the same everywhere. The goal is for each version of you to still feel like an honest branch of the same tree. And this brings us to something deeply human. Attachment shapes almost every version of yourself that exists today. The version of you around your parents was shaped by years of learning what earned love, safety, or approval in childhood. The version around your closest friends was shaped by moments where you felt truly seen, truly accepted, without needing to perform. The version around strangers is shaped by uncertainty, by not yet knowing whether this new person is safe. Every single version of you is actually a psychological memory, a survival strategy built from thousands of small emotional experiences stacked one on top of another since childhood. Which means, in a strange, almost beautiful way, becoming someone else around different people isn't losing yourself. It's proof that you've been paying attention your entire life. It's proof that your brain has been quietly building an internal map of the world, learning who is safe, who requires caution, who deserves your full unfiltered self, and who only gets the polished, careful version. Now here's the deeper meaning behind all of this. The people who make you feel most like yourself, who allow the version of you with the least filtering, least performance, least fear, are just people you enjoy being around. Neurologically and psychologically, they are your safest people. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, rises in situations of trust and closeness, further reducing your brain's need to monitor and filter. That's the biological reason why your true, more expressive self only shows up around certain people. Not because those people are more entertaining, but because your nervous system has learned, through repeated experience, that it doesn't have to protect itself around them. So if you've ever wondered why you feel more you around one friend and more guarded around your own family, this is why. It's not disloyalty. It's neuroscience quietly whispering who feels safest. Here's the final perspective shift. The next time you notice yourself changing around different people, softer here, louder there, more guarded here, more open there, don't see it as inconsistency. See it as intelligence. See it as a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, protecting you in unfamiliar rooms, and finally relaxing in familiar ones. You are not fake. You are not fractured. You are simply a human mind doing what human minds have always done, adapting to survive, adapting to belong, and slowly, carefully, revealing more of itself to those who've earned it. And if identity feels this layered when it comes to who you become around other people, wait until you discover what happens to your identity when no one is watching at all. Because the version of you that exists in complete solitude, the thoughts you have, the person you become when there's no audience left to perform for, might be the most revealing version of all. And that's a story worth exploring next.